What was your I need to grow up moment that actually made you grow up? My parents started making dinner only for me and saying they already ate. Me being a dumb kid of 16ish, I just believed it. Eventually I put the pieces together. They hadn't eaten. They were prioritizing feeding me, and we were hurting real bad financially. I went into town and got a job at Carl's Jr. First paycheck I bought groceries as a surprise. Sure enough, they had dinner with me that night. My mom later on told me her dad had done the same thing when money was tight. My family is incredibly diehard loyal to their kids. Your parents are heroes for putting you first, and you are a hero for lifting the well-being of your family. I wish you all every success and happiness. When my mom was dying, I had to square with a whole lot of suck it up and deal moments with myself so that crap could get done. She'd been sick for a long while, but had always been private about it until the last few months, when she was rapidly getting worse, especially when my grandmother also got horribly ill at the same time. I got used to the sight smell of bile real fast, and with the fact that I needed to catch my mom's puke in a bowl because she couldn't walk to the toilet. I got used to spending nights and weekends in hospital rooms so that mom would have someone with her while dad was checking in on grandma. I got used to calmly talking about end of life arrangements, because that stuff had to be taken care of. I even got used to not being able to talk about it with anyone, because who was I going to spill to? Everyone else in the family was dealing with a much worse scenario than I was. It sucked horribly and it was the worst year of my life, but it was definitely a growing experience in terms of just learning how to get crap done, even in the most horrific circumstances. In my late 20s my mom needed open heart surgery, so I moved home for over a year to look after her. Up until that point I honestly can't think of a single responsible thing I had really done. When I was 22-23 I would always insult my brother as a joke. I never complimented him or anything. One day he kind of exploded on me, and before I could say something I realized he was right. All I did was try to bring him down for no reason. I stopped, which ironically enough annoyed him for a while because I would throw in compliments and stopped insulting him. I started teaching right out of college at age 22. I got a job in a Title I school teaching 5th grade science and social studies. Most students were held back at least once, and I had several students who were 12 and 13 years old. On the first day of school, I remember feeling so strange that I could shut my classroom door and be trusted to be responsible for the science and civic education of 93 sections of 30 kids, 5th graders. At age 22, my first few years of teaching taught me a lot about how the world worked. I also grew a thick skin, learned to stand up for myself, and developed a desire to always improve myself. Goddamn, that weird hollow feeling when the person doing your induction orientation leaves the classroom for the last time and it's just a thin slice of wood between you and your first class. Living with roommates. As a teenager and in my early 20s I figured being lazy with dishes wasn't that big a deal. It's just a little smelly. It's nothing some elbow grease and barkeeper's friend can't make good as new. Right, washing dishes is a pain. It's annoying. My feet hurt. My belly gets all wet. It's no big deal if I let them sit. Then I lived with roommates who didn't do their dishes for days at a time. Left them to sit with nasty starchy food on them to rot and stink. Put them in the drying side for weeks at a time and never put them away. I was forced to wash my dishes by hand because there was only room around the sink for me to hold up a single plate over their mountain of dishes and wash it slowly so as not to get soap on the drying side, which probably would have helped. The things on that side frequently weren't even freaking clean. The rare moments when the sink was clear were like a rainbow for me. I would stare at it sometimes just overjoyed that I could use the sink. I could cook in the kitchen and let my pans cool down instead of burn my hands cleaning them immediately after cooking, leading to my food getting cold. But inevitably within 2 or 3 days it'd be full again, and the cycle continues. We moved out because of this. We couldn't stand being in the kitchen because it was a complete sty for 128 of the 132 days we lived there. We were supposed to save money there, but we just spent the same amount as usual by eating out for every dang meal because we were too grossed out to use the kitchen or even just be in the house sometimes. It really made me realize how freaking nasty I had been before this. How unfucking real it was to assume people would be fine with nasty crap in my freaking sink and a gross butt kitchen. I no longer leave dishes in the sink for more than 24 hours. If it went it at 9 PM last night, it comes out before 8 PM tonight. I don't even use a dishwasher anymore. I hand wash everything pretty much immediately because it was so traumatizing to see how dirty the crap on the drying side was. I don't trust machines anymore. I made a lot of excuses for myself as a teenager. I made my mom's life that much worse by shirking my one freaking chore because it's gross and my feet hurt. It's not that hard, it's not that freaking hard, I'm an adult, it sucks, but it's not that freaking hard. And then I get to have a clean kitchen, which is a genuinely healing experience. Holy frick. I used to live with 6 guys who never cleaned up in our entire 4 years of college. I literally the only one cleaning the whole house for the whole 4 years. I may sound overreacting, but I literally crying happily when I move out and live all by myself. Arrested for BDFI. Being a drunken freaking idiot. Realized that almost every problem in my life was related to the fact that I was acting like a drunken frat boy at 27 years old. I never quit drinking completely, but I stopped making it the focal point of my life. My entire life turned around immediately. When every story you tell starts with, we were freaking wasted, you know your life is totally focused around alcohol. Walking into the rehab center I had left 6 months prior, December 2006. I had been a drug addict for 15 years and even the people who desperately loved me were about to cut me off. I knew in my heart that this was my last chance to get my life in order, otherwise it would be the end. Well, tell us how you're doing now. Good, I hope. Hitting rock bottom from booze, blow and pills. Coming up on 4 years clean and sober. Glad to be on the green side of the dirt. Jesus, yes, this. When you're actively using, sometimes it just doesn't feel like you'll ever have the willpower and wherewithal to seek help and move forward until you get to rock bottom. I had to hit that first before I could move forward. When I realized that I needed to start socializing with people, otherwise I couldn't get anywhere in life. I'm mostly an introvert and I hate to go outside because the grind never stops. At some point though I realized that if I never socialized I wouldn't make any friends and would never feel good about myself whatsoever. Ever since that moment, I started going out with people, chatting with people online. I started expressing myself a little better and might have a girlfriend soon. Honestly, a good thing. IDK if this all fits as a grow up moment, but I hope it does. Realizing that going to IT school to become a programmer when I wasn't even interested in that line of work was why I had depression, was alone, and always angry. I now am going for art and design, have incredibly calmed down, and found myself the love of my life. I had a similar realization but for accounting, programming. In programming a defense, school makes it seem 100x more boring. However, definitely not for everyone. Art and design sounds really awesome. Glad you found your happy spot. Realizing that I want to spend my life with someone, but don't have the means to move in with them, get married, start a life, etc. I started driving. I haven't driven due to fear and mostly got rides everywhere, and got a real job. I'm saving up to get a home with my partner so we can have a happy life together. Paying rent for the first time. I once paid rent to my old landlord and rent and security for my new place in one day. Adulting sucks. Why the heck am I spending so much money every month servicing credit card interest? Can I really not control my spending? Am I really that impulsive? The first time my yearly report from my credit card came in, I saw that I spent nearly $10,000 on useless bulls like snacks and eating out at fast food places. I got pulled over doing 90 miles per hour in a 55. I was 17, and in my status when you are legally an adult, was still high school and on my way back from my military drill that weekend. The officer had me stop the engine, get out, and then proceeds to handcuff me on the side of the road, in my uniform, and has me sit on the grass. Then we proceeded to have a nice long talk about making choices and the consequences of my actions if I had crashed or lost control and what would happen if he booked me for this. Reckless endangerment. Operating a motor vehicle 35 miles per hour in excess of the speed limit. Reckless driving. I was going to be one frick teenager. He then took off the handcuffs, handed me my keys, and told me that he had never seen my name come up anywhere for anything ever again, before letting me go. I was shaking so bad I could barely drive off the highway. Suffice to say, I've never had another traffic violation. Major props to that good cop who taught you a major lesson and let you go rather than book you for all those things. Great example of effective instruction correction. I was 15. I had a stepfather who hated kids, and my mom had 4. Me being the youngest. The eldest 2 bailed as soon as they had the chance, because our family was terribly dysfunctional. Stepdad would get drunk and abuse my mom. We tried many times to stop him or get the cops involved, but she always backed him up. So frick it, her dog, her fleas. There came a day when stepdad decided that he didn't want to abuse mom. He's come upstairs after me. Being a malnourished 15-year-old facing a drunken ex-boxer with a history of violence was enough to make a boy freeze up. I couldn't freeze up, though, or my life would basically be over. I couldn't let the next 5 minutes go his way, so by the time he got to the top of the steps, I was waiting for him with a baseball bat. Not as much of an equalizer as Sam Colt would recommend, but it did the trick. I beat the monster. I grew up. My mom and stepdad moved out almost immediately, her choosing him over us. She said when we graduated high school, she'd sell the house to be ready, but my next oldest brother, it was just him and me at that point, was into drinking and threw me out. Good times. Well frick. The look of disappointment on my wife's face when we received our 3rd eviction notice while on vacation with my family. I spent the money on everything else rather than paying bills first. I went to a party where I knew my ex was going to be with his girlfriend. We dated for about 4 years and had been broken up for 2 years at that point. He started dating his girlfriend within a few months of us breaking up, and I guess I hadn't gotten over how much that hurt me. So I brought a date to the party, told everybody he was my boyfriend, and got absolutely trashed. I woke up the next day and hated myself. I realized I needed to let it go, so I did. That was a huge growing up moment for me. I feel this. Dated a girl for 6 years and it was over in one day. It'll be 2 years since we've broken up in October and I still haven't let go. The heartbreak is still there, but slowly I think I'm getting there. Don't want to let that person or experience keep affecting my life. My wife dying and leaving me with our 3 kids. I'd always been very immature up until then. After I dropped out of college, I worked at a Home Depot as a cashier for a while. Then I got fired for never showing up on time. After not being able to cut it as a cashier in retail, I thought, it's probably time to get my act together. I did. Currently write code that organizes financial data. But do you still show up late to work? I had a child. It wasn't just me and my adult, fully capable wife who could take up the slack if I screwed up. I now had this helpless little person relying on me. Until she was born, I hadn't held a job for over a year. I then had that job for 8 years, and when I did switch jobs there was a significant pay increase and now I've been there 4 years. Congratulations on doing so well for your family. When I was born my dad decided to continue wasting his time, and left my mum alone to raise me. I don't think I'll ever forgive him. Right when I graduated college and moved out on my own, I received around a $100K inheritance and started spending money like it was nothing, to the point where I finally checked my financials and realized I had spent $30K in 9 months. It was only when I ran through the numbers that I realized I was being a total, complete idiot. I think this really helped later on in life, though. It caused me to save and invest as much money as possible, even when I had a really well-paying job. While people at my level were buying either a Lexus or a Mercedes, I was clinging onto my Honda Civic, then later bought a Prius. 30 grand in 9 months is pretty impressive for not having a drug habit. A mentor and a man I admired greatly listened to me tell him why. Once again, my freak up wasn't my fault. He looked me straight in the eye and quietly said, I had really high expectations for you and you haven't shown me a dang thing. Ouch, that turned me around. It took a few years but I earned his respect again and I promised myself I would never hear someone say that to me again. At 16, when my mother had a stroke, then at 17 when she moved out, I was forced to provide for myself. Right now I'm going through a rough patch and want to cry, but I've learned if I keep doing my thing I'll get things back to normal. It's just so dang hard. Even when I have friends that support me emotionally, I don't want to dump all my problems on them and some stuff I don't have answers to. I'm 31 and I hope once I complete my education in a few years and start making more money I can being so scared of losing everything and my anxiety will be better. Met my wife. Wasn't on a bad path but had no real direction. Realized very quickly she was not going to stick around if I had no direction. When I realized how toxic my life was around me, family, professionally diagnosed mental health, abusive relationships etc., I finally realized I needed to get my crap together and be a grown up. I got myself out of my family's house and moved into my own apartment with 2 people and I fell in love with one of them and we are talking about getting married now. Being prepared to kill my ex-wife and the dude she was fricking on my couch, I realized I needed to live my life for myself. Waking up from my nap and I was still in the cell. When I was 23 I got my supervisor pregnant. I broke up with her right before she told me. We decided the best course of action was to give the baby up for adoption. The mother had undiagnosed borderline personality disorder. She was practically a textbook case and came from a toxic family, so I spent 9 agonizing months putting up with emotional abuse and manipulation to make sure she went through with it and save that little boy from a life of heck. We gave him to a nice gay couple. The mother hates me and blames me. I still feel like what I did was the most fatherly thing I could do at the time. If he wants to look me up when he's older I'll be waiting. If he wants to look me up when he's older I'll be waiting. Good on you, man. Woke up on the median in the busiest part of town. Passing in and out on acid. No shoes, no shirt, and my car keys 10 miles away from home. Called my parents at 5:30 am and knew what had to be done. Was all about club party life, saw a mate overdose and thought crap that could be me next. My first boss asking me a question he didn't know the answer to. He knew I knew, and he actually needed me. I was useful. I wasn't just a kid anymore. I was someone who knew something. I still quietly thank him on a regular basis for that huge chunk of my self-esteem. Thank you, Hans. When I was 15, I had to kick out one of my mother's clients when she was getting violated, prostituting herself to put food on the table. Didn't have much of a childhood and don't speak with my family much anymore. Just made sure they were off well enough to no longer need me. Forgot how to have fun and experience joy in general. Always being serious about the tiniest thing. But I'm on my way back. Holy crap, that sounds rough. Take as long as you need to change and you'll get there eventually. Clearly you're an incredibly strong person for making it this far. My wife was walking down the aisle towards me. The context: late 20s, no steady job, reasonable income from IT consultancy, but very irregular. Then the girlfriend became pregnant. I told her I'd support her no matter what she chose. 3 months in I landed an 8-week fixed-term contract on the lower rungs of a large corporate IT department. 6 months later they just plain gave me a job. That was in 2010, and I'm still there now. Slightly different. I've raised 2 wonderful children. I can run a household and budget efficiently, hold a full-time job and all the other grown-up things adults do. But I've never really felt that I've actually grown up. I look at other people my age and think they're grown up, but feel I'm just kinda faking it, TBH. When I was 16 my mother had to leave me alone 2 weeks at a time to go to work as a carer abroad. At first it was great, but then a very dark anxiety set in. It was then that I realized that I had to do things for myself and push on with schoolwork. I could have easily sat back in the darkness I was feeling and let myself go, but instead I decided to grow up. Having a parent I was solely reliant on died. The day I realized I couldn't stay in the military forever and had to figure out what I was going to do afterward. When I had been doing ecstasy 2-3 times a week for over a year, memory was ridiculous. Could barely string a sentence properly without thoroughly thinking it through. Felt mad anxious about everyone and everything, probability to lack of serotonin. Finding it difficult to spell words that I previously could. I think the correct term is fried. I've now been a month ecstasy sober, which may seem small to you, However, this is the longest it's been since I first started doing them and I feel better already. I am not saying I will never touch ecstasy again, but that part of my life is definitely past me. If I do it again, I will certainly not let myself fall down that deep dark hole again, but rather for a bit of fun every now and again, as it can be a beautiful drug in moderation. And I don't care what anybody says, it is definitely mentally addictive. Took 5-6 grams of shrooms while I was almost blackout drunk. Had the worst night of my life. Hallucinated so bad that I thought reality was just made up in my head and that I was actually on the side of the road bleeding out. It came down after a few hours, but for the next 6 or so months I still had this nagging thought that I was in a coma and people in the hospital were trying to get through to me. Had horrible anxiety attacks and audible hallucinations until one night I hit a bong and started tripping again. Spent the night in the psych ward and spent the next few days seeing psychiatrists. I was suffering from PTSD from an episode of drug-induced psychosis. I'm better-ish now, but that was the moment I realized I needed to clean up my act and start acting like an adult. It's freaked up that people are commenting that crap, but don't pay any attention to them. They're the ones who need to grow up. I'm super proud that you had the strength to deal with PTSD and realize that you needed to make lifestyle changes for it to get better. That crap is hard to do. When my parents got divorced, someone had to be the adult. Right after I finished high school, me and my mom had our house foreclosed on that I'd lived in my entire life. It was the middle of the summer and we had to move all of our stuff out, including emptying a fridge freezer in 100+ degree heat with no account. Losing your child at home is really something if you get that far in life without hopping from place to place. It was weird. Hospital sent us home with a newborn baby and we got no instruction manual. Realizing that my parents don't care about me at all. I was only 10, but since then I have done everything that needs to be done. I raised myself. I was my own parent. You have been visited by the party pug. He just wants you to celebrate with him. Comment woohoo to celebrate with the party pug. Thanks for watching. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.